we didn't buy a big stroller.
After we moved, I wanted to, on walks, not have to bend over as much. So I sawed the handles off, got some PVC pipe and extended it and wrapped some twine and super glue around on each end. It looks like someone MacGyvered the tar out of that poor little stroller. And that might have been what inspired someone to gift us the larger stroller.
Maybe so.
Because we were on a walk with the MacGyvered banana stroller here in our neighborhood, and someone just shouted out, "Hey, do you need a bigger stroller?"
I'm really glad that we didn't just buy one because that's what you do.
Thanks for being on the podcast again, Amanda. It's been a year since the last time you and I got to share a conversation on here. Last year, for Valentine's Day, and I think tomorrow's Valentine's Day for when this will come out, last year we talked about how to make budgets romantic. Do you want to share what the main focus is going to be today?
We're talking about frugally preparing for baby number 2.
And as we're getting ready to welcome this baby into the world, I thought today might be a good opportunity to talk about what we did well with Oliver, what we want to do again, and if there's anything that we need to do differently, what would we do differently? So for starters, what were the top 3 ways you think we frugally prepared well for Oliver?
I think the first one that comes to my mind is cloth diapering. I just knew that that was going to be the most frugal way to diaper based on the cost of diapers and the amount of diapers you go through. And now I don't have to buy any more diapers for Isaac. I can use the same ones, given that Oliver's mostly potty trained by the time Isaac comes around.
When we started looking into cloth diapering, I didn't know how it worked. We went with a pocket style with inserts, right?
Right.
Do you think we're going to need to replace any inserts as we're getting ready for a second child, or add more to the collection?
Not at this stage. They're working for a toddler, so they should work for a newborn. If they lose integrity at some point, then maybe we will have to replace some, but as of now, they're good and they should last a few more years.
If I remember right, when we were thinking about the cloth diapering versus disposable diapers, a lot of what we found was sentiment that you start with the cloth diapering and then you fall off the bandwagon. Why do you think you fall off, and why haven't you? Because you've stuck with the cloth diapering.
Yeah, for 2 years I've stuck with it. Now he does wear disposables on occasion. I'm part of a Facebook page that gives me a lot of insight to troubleshooting and how to solve some cloth diapering problems, and gave me the know-how to start in the first place, which was really important, because if I hadn't felt confident in starting, I wouldn't have started. Now, once you've done it, you just keep doing it.
A frugal thing that we did well, you want to do again, one would be diapers. Are there any others?
Yeah, we didn't buy a big stroller. Now, that's because we were in Utah living in a 3rd floor condo. It wasn't practical to lug that thing up and down 3 flights of stairs every time you wanted to use it. And so we bought just this little fold-up umbrella stroller, and that's the only stroller that we have bought so far. We were gifted a larger stroller, but somehow he prefers the littler one anyway most of the time, or the wagon that my sister loans us so that we can tug her little girl around with us when we are together, when I'm watching her. So we have not needed a big stroller, and I'm really glad that we didn't just buy one because that's what you do. We thought about it and we made the decision not to, and that was the right thing.
If I remember the banana stroller, we got the little fold-up one. The handles were a little low for me, and we used it for a real short period in Utah because when Oliver was first born and we went on walks, we just used the little carrier.
Yeah.
Then we got the stroller. After we moved, I wanted to on walks not have to bend over as much. So I sawed the handles off, got some PVC pipe and extended it and wrapped some twine and super glue around on each end. It looks like someone MacGyvered the tar out of that poor little stroller. And that might have been what inspired someone to gift us the larger stroller.
Maybe so.
Because we were on a walk with the MacGyvered banana stroller here in our neighborhood, and someone just shouted out, "Hey, do you need a bigger stroller?"
Yep, that's how that happened.
And I'm trying to remember why they were giving it away. It was because their daughter
Had
just had
twins, and
twins,
they had upgraded.
so they didn't need the single stroller. They had a double. Okay, so number one was cloth diapers. Number two was not getting a big stroller simply because we didn't need it and it wasn't practical for our situation before. What's the third frugal thing that you would do again?
We borrowed from people, like all of my maternity clothes, the bassinet, the swing, all of those things were loaned to us, and we gave them back. And some of those things we've gotten back again this second time. Some of them we haven't, but ultimately we have everything that we need by just being part of a community that's very generous and works together. And I've loaned out my clothes here and there too. So we just work together and give each other what we need.
So third one is borrowing things that are going unused that friends in our community or family have. Okay, that leads really nicely into the second question. So what's something frugal that we did with Oliver that we definitely don't have to do with baby number two, with Isaac?
Well, we don't have to buy any more cloth diapers. We don't have to buy another crib. We don't have to buy another car seat yet.
Yeah.
And strollers and all those types of things. We we have a lot of those, well, really all of those big ticket items. So there's not a lot of cost that goes in this time around.
To the extent that with baby number two, as I think is relatively common, we didn't do something like a baby shower
Right.
for Isaac because we're established with what we need. All right, I'm really curious what your answer is going to be on this one. What's an expense that we incurred with Oliver, either prepping for him or shortly after he was born, that you don't want to repeat again with Isaac?
An epidural that cost a lot of money,
And the bill came late.
and the bill came very late. Now, that's not to say I'm not grateful that I had it. I am, but I was trying not to. And this time around, I'm going to try not to again. So if we can help it, I'm going to not get the epidural, save that cost, and save my back some nerve issues.
Because when you got the epidural with Oliver, you had some persisting issues thereafter.
I did, yeah. I had some kind of intense nerve sensations for months and months after.
Does it still bother you anymore?
No, it doesn't. It did go away finally, but for a long, long time, it really bothered me. And so if I can avoid that, that sounds great.
So that was an expense that was incurred during labor. Was there something to prepare that you wouldn't want to put money into again with baby number two that we very well could, but our past experiences, no, I don't want to do that again.
I bought an online birthing class, like natural birthing class. It was actually something that I saw on Facebook. I think it was like $90.
Yeah, it wasn't cheap.
And while I did learn things because, I hadn't gone through it before, I was glad to have learned, but I don't think it was worth $90, especially for an online thing. And I definitely wouldn't buy that particular class again. I've been a little tempted by other classes just because I want to be prepared, but I keep telling myself, no, I mean, you know what you're getting into. There's lots of free resources out there that give you so much information, more than you could even absorb anyway. So I have told myself no on additional costly birthing courses.
We largely don't have near as much fear of the unknown this time around as we did with Oliver, because this is, I guess you could say, it's not our first rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing, and I don't want to dog on the online class in particular, so I'm not going to name it. I can't even remember the name of it. But I think one of the biggest disappointments in going through that particular class, because we watched it together, was the editing it left a lot to be desired. There were some really awkward moments that sort of broke the immersion in the learning process. So speaking of the free resources, you talked about there are a lot of free resources. What are the top 3 things that you would tell an expecting mom that they can use for free to get ready for their baby?
The library. I actually checked out a lot of birthing books at the library and read those to prepare, and those served me just as well as the online birthing course that cost me $90.
So the library's free. You found a lot of good books. Do you have any particular books that you can remember the titles of that you would recommend?
I read Hypnobirthing, and that was really good. The Bradley Method and some Lamaze things I read. And then even beyond the actual giving birth part, I really found Baby Wise to be very helpful for, talking about newborn schedules and sleep and all of that, to give me some advice. And I, of course, read What to Expect When You're Expecting. And so those are all great resources.
And then there was one book that you read which talked about leaps that was really helpful in sleep regressions. What was that book?
The Wonder Weeks. I think that was one that I put on the registry and that we got from our baby shower. Yeah, so that one was really helpful, and it was a good one to actually own, because otherwise you'd have to be checking it out every leap, which the leaps go through like 2 years of age almost. So you'd have to be rechecking it out every couple of weeks to stay on top of it and be reading it when it's relevant.
And I think one of the best things from my perspective, I didn't read it. You read it. You shared stuff with me. But one of the things that I really found useful was putting a name to the cranky phases where your child refuses to sleep and is just behaving in a way that is not characteristic of how they were a day or two ago. Because otherwise, I think I would have gone insane during some of those seasons. The last one was the 2-year sleep regression.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was bad.
That one was very bad. But aside from like a heads up on the crankiness, was also, here's what to look for in their development. Like, see what new things that they can do. And here are some activities that you can do with them to help them and to enjoy the phase that they're in.
Because on the other side of each one of those cranky leaps and sleep difficulties was a huge cognitive or skill development that you could look forward to. Where Oliver is right now with his language development coming on the other side of the 2-year sleep regression, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's really, we can have conversations with him now.
Conversations with him now.
So that's awesome. Let's get back on track with the question. Top 3 free things that moms can do to prepare, or parents can do to prepare. 1, get books from the library. What would be your second one?
Exercise. One of the things that I did really well in my first pregnancy, because I had ample time. Now, not so much my exercise is my toddler, but I watched a lot of Jessica Pumple's videos on YouTube for prenatal yoga and stretching and exercise, and, lining your baby up for birth. Those were extremely helpful. And I really wish I had more time to do those this time around. Exercise is always free, regardless whether you're watching a video or giving your toddler horsey rides.
Oliver is your workout routine now.
Oliver is my workout routine now.
And he is a workout. Wrestling with Oliver is also the number one way I get exercise, because I haven't had a gym membership since, 30 years? It's been 30 years without a gym membership. So what are some other free things that moms and dads can do to prepare for baby 1, baby 2?
I'm part of some Facebook groups that have actually been very helpful for me. I mentioned the cloth diapering one earlier, but also an in general mom's group where people can share, hey, my baby's doing this. Is this normal? Types of questions and things that you can kind of look at in advance to kind of see where you might end up and how to prepare, and also to be part of a community. And there's, of course, buy nothing pages. And I've seen even like on just regular mom groups, people offering to send whatever somebody needs. It's great to have that community. I also really recommend Bridget Taylor's Built to Birth videos. Now, she has a paid class that I was tempted by, but all of her free resources are really great, and they've been inspiring to me preparing for both labors now.
Okay, I got another question for you. Is there anything that you bought in preparation for Oliver, that we bought in preparation for Oliver, that you feel like just wasn't used or went radically underutilized given how expensive it was?
I bought all of the postpartum care stuff because I didn't know, and I wanted to be prepared. I didn't want to have to be trying to find a solution or in need of something right after I had a newborn. But a lot of that stuff did go unused because a lot of it, most of it, basically all of it is supplied by the hospital in the first place. And I had a lucky enough birth that I didn't need much in the way of that postpartum care. So maybe don't overbuy. I don't know. I don't know that I would have done it any differently in the first one, but this time around, I don't plan on buying as much. And then I bought a nightgown for the hospital. I don't even know if I wore it in the hospital.
I don't even know if I remember it.
Yeah, I was all concerned about what I was going to wear in the hospital and bought something special and didn't even wear it or remember it, or I don't even know where it is now.
I think we picked like what outfits we were going to wear on the way home into the morning when it was time to leave. I'm pretty sure I was still in pajamas and we just like left.
Well, I left you in charge of packing your own clothes.
That's true.
So
So I was probably wearing pajamas.
I had mine packed.
The one thing that I'm really grateful that we did in the way of attire at the hospital is we brought the outfit that my parents had for me when they brought me home from the hospital. So we got to dress Oliver in that. But I was a bigger baby by the time they got to bring me home.
Oliver was kind of swimming in
He
it.
was a little kid and I was a NICU baby. That was, it's not because I was late or anything, but by the time my parents brought me home, I was bigger. So that outfit was a little large. I also remember back when we were preparing for Oliver, we were a little overwhelmed with all of the unknowns,
Yeah.
especially the unknowns of what are the costs and how is this going to impact our financial life. If there's a mom or a dad out there right now who's really concerned about the cost of having a baby or the cost of caring for that newborn, and they're overwhelmed with the unknown, what advice do you have for them?
There's one area that you need to spend your time worrying about and working on, and that is your health coverage, whether that's insurance or cost sharing ministry, or whether you are saving up and paying out of pocket. Those are worth your time figuring out. I have been on so many phone calls and trying to figure out how things are going to work. And it's worth it. Like, you need to know what your insurance is going to cover, what it's not going to cover, how much certain things are going to cost. And unfortunately, you just have to be the one to ask and research and find that out. Nobody is going to tell you, nobody is going to give you a nice list. You just have to search it out. But if you ask and if you're persistent, people will tell you. So if there's one thing that you spend your time and attention on, it's that. Because bar none, that is the biggest expense. It's your labor and delivery costs and the pre and postnatal care.
I'm going to interject here and say that I recall in the cost sharing ministry that you and I still have, we had it for Oliver, we have it for Isaac. Somewhere in there, I believe you needed to be set in the deductible plan, or the equivalent to a deductible, prior to being pregnant. I don't think you can change after
Right.
you're like, oh, we have a baby that's on the way, because they don't want you to say, hey, we've got this very high deductible plan, and I'm sure other insurance companies have the same thing. We have this high deductible. Oh, there's a baby on the way. That means a lot of cost out of pocket. Let's roll it down. They might not let you roll it down. So if you're in a position where your family might be expanding and you can't actually afford that high deductible in the case of a kid coming along, be it due to the deductible inherently as it is, or any maternity limits that they put on it.
Right.
That's important to understand in advance if possible. And then once you're expecting a baby, knowing what your deductible costs are and your responsibilities, sometimes having to do a lot of footwork, will tell you what you need to prepare, at least at the maximum of 4 insurance takes on the risk for catastrophe or costs that would way exceed it. If I remember right, what was it? The hospital back in Utah for Oliver said that if we didn't deal with the bill in a certain way, it was going to be almost, what, 30 grand for just the hospital. That didn't include the global bill, that didn't include the epidural.
Anesthesiologists, yeah.
Yeah. So there was a lot there. I'm going to cover cost sharing ministries in a future episode, so subscribe if you don't want to miss it. When it comes to the cost sharing ministries, we have a cheaper equivalent to a premium. Are you still glad that we've been utilizing that outlet versus traditional health insurance?
I think so. And I only have really your awful plan prior to that, where the deductible was even higher and the premium was even higher. So I'm not sure. There's probably an insurance plan out there that would be more beneficial to the position that we're in.
Okay, so number one is going to be understanding your health insurance situation so that you can grasp the responsibility that you have for the upcoming baby. What else would you tell a parent that's worried about the financial burden of a child?
Beyond the health insurance stuff, the other big costs are going to be two really essential things that are going to cost you a good bit of money. And that's the car seat and the crib. And if you can get the car seat and the crib, then you're really going to be okay if you don't get really much of anything else, because everything else can be hand-me-downs or thrift store or stuff you borrow, because babies do not care if they're in hand-me-downs. And toys, forget toys. I'm just going to play with the recycling over here, or the mommy's hairbrush, or any of the other household items. Like, don't worry about buying toys, because one, they don't need them. Two, that's something fun for somebody to gift you. And then eventually you're going to have too many toys that you didn't even buy.
Like
So,
we've bought hardly any toys, and I feel like the living room's full of them just
right.
from overwhelming generosity from friends and family.
Right. So utilize the thrift store for clothes and other kinds of essentials, because your baby's not going to care. The two areas that you need to make sure you do have safe, and not necessarily new, but definitely a trusted source, is the car seat and the crib.
Because the car seat, there are laws around buying them used,
And cribs too.
and cribs too. And the crib that we ended up with for Oliver, I think, was gifted, wasn't it?
The crib was, but the mattress was new.
Right. There's rules on the mattress that are specific. I didn't even know about the mattress rules until just recently.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind. Do you remember buying Oliver's first car seat and what we did to pick it out, since we had to buy that new and it was such an expensive item?
We did a lot of comparison shopping and made pros and cons lists and everything, trying to make the right decision on a car seat. And I don't know whether we made the right decision or not, but at the time, we were more concerned about the safety features, I think there would have been plenty of other options that also hit those criteria, but don't get too wrapped up in the rabbit hole of searching. They're all going to be okay. Just make your list and check it twice and then go for it.
The things that I think mattered to me were the first load leg. I wanted a carrier base that had a load leg just from crash test videos that we saw. And then the other one is I wanted the carrier to be really light because the weight difference across the breadth of baby carrier car seats was pretty
And we
out
knew we
there.
were going to be lugging that thing up and down three
The three
flights of
flights of
stairs.
stairs. So we've got the health insurance is something that you really need to understand, and then grasp that for the car seat and the crib, at least the mattress, you're going to probably be looking at a more expensive purchase there. That's a nice bullet point, 3 things to be concerned about. What other bits of advice do you have for a parent who's worried about the costs?
Your love is free.
Oh,
And that's really what matters. But even beyond that is look to see if you can stay at home, because that's been super beneficial for us. And I personally don't know how I would manage getting food on the table and cleaning and taking care of my child if I had a full-time job to weigh those pros and cons. Like, we looked to see if we could make it on Jay's income, and we had to cut back and we had to do things a little bit differently, but it was the right decision and it's been so worth it. So I strongly encourage you to take a look at your situation. And it's not for everyone. Not everyone can do that. But if you can, I highly recommend staying home.
to add to that, you stay home with Oliver and soon Isaac. Your sister and her husband, they are both working parents.
Right.
So that was the decision that was right for them. We see it work both ways, depending on the circumstances. I love that you said you need to analyze the possibility there. Your sister shared with us the TikTok that went a little viral about the cost of daycare, because it's gotten astronomical due to, for lack of a better term, COVID drove demand way down. Daycares went out of business. Supply goes way up as everyone goes back to the office, but there aren't enough daycares to meet demand, so prices go up.
Well, and I think my sister would be in a very different situation if she did have to pay those types of daycare prices. I've got a cheap rate, so she has got a good deal having me watch her daughter, and I think that has made a huge difference for her. And maybe there's something like that in your situation that you can employ a friend or a relative, someone you really trust. But if you don't, then consider staying home or look into those daycare costs and know what they are, because it may not be worth it to continue working.
And the thing that I want to add to the cutting back in order to make one income work, one thing I'm very grateful that we did is we put a lot toward retirement early on when we were both working. We really loaded up our retirement accounts together. And I think the first area we really cut back when you left your teaching career to stay home with Oliver was the extra money we were saving toward retirement.
Right.
But we got to a point where we could sort of stop the extra over and beyond with effectively hitting coasting financial independence. We're still contributing to retirement, but it opened up a door where we could do that much more comfortably than we otherwise would have, just for our situation. As we're wrapping up, I've got one more question for you. What is one bit of advice, hopeful bit of advice, that you would give to expecting parents right now? It doesn't have to be financial, just from the heart. What are you going to tell the mom or the dad that's listening right now?
As cliche as it may be, and as often as you may have heard it, it is all worth it. I promise. The sleepless nights, the labor pain, the changes, the diaper changes, the messes, all of it. It's worth it. I have never, ever laughed on a daily basis consistently in my life. And now, on top of laughing every day, I get caught smiling like an idiot at my child across the room in amazement because I'm just so happy. And that is not a place that I was in before marriage and having kids. I have never felt so proud, so needed, and so loved. And children really teach you what's important in life, and that is something that money cannot buy.
I'm speechless hearing that. I'm getting a little emotional. I was just today, Oliver woke up from his nap early and he wanted to snuggle with you, and you were busy, but you snuggled with him and he was sad. And we, through the ups and downs, it's so good to remember that it is worth it, and to remember the smiling and the happiness and the joy that children bring.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Amanda, for coming on for the Valentine's Day episode for the second year in a row. Maybe we'll do this again next year. Until next week, until next Tuesday, budget bravely and enjoy your hope-filled financial future.